Okay, so this is the second part of the chapter 7 and 8 presentation on interpersonal communication and interpersonal relationships. So we talked about some types of relationships and what characterizes them, and now we'll talk about disclosure and emotional support in relationships. Okay, so what is disclosure? I told you we talk more about that. So disclosure is the process of revealing information. It's also feedback. So it can be revealing personal information about yourself. It can be when someone else reveals personal information about them. It can be like when someone says that's all right, but you can hear in their tone that it's really not all right. That would be a type of feedback, and that would also be a sort of a type of disclosure. So self-disclosure is information that we deliberately choose to share about ourselves. And other disclosure is information we share about others. And when we talk about other disclosure, we're normally talking about private, confidential information, things like secrets that maybe that other person didn't want us to share. So social penetration theory describes the different kinds of self-disclosure that we use in relationships. Not all self-disclosure is equally revealing, and it varies in breadth and depth. So breadth is the range of subjects that you share with a partner, and depth is the quality of the information that is shared. The Johari window explains how these forms of disclosure and feedback operate through a relationship's life cycle or through relationships' life cycles. And they consist of 4 panes that comprise all the information about you. You and your partner know some, but not all of the information in the panes in the Johari window. So here's kind of a breakdown of the Johari window. So the open pane is information that both you and your partner know. The secret pane is what you know about yourself that the partner doesn't know. The blind pane is what your partner knows about you that you don't realize about yourself. And we've probably all had that experience where a friend or an intimate, can anticipate how we might react to a situation, and they know what we're going to do before we do. That would be the blind pane. And the unknown pane is information that neither you nor your partner know. And of course, information can change between panes. So let's say something starts in the unknown pane, your partner realizes it, then that information would move from the unknown to the blind pane. And ideally, eventually, you have more information in the open pane than in these other 3 panes. The communication climate describes the overall emotional context of the relationship through the messages that we exchange. So a positive communication climate is one where partners feel valued and supported. They're characterized by confirming communication messages that we show we care, and in a positive communication climate, there tend to be fewer disconfirming communications that signal a lack of regard or respect. The book doesn't really talk about it, but there's also something called a negative communication climate. Disconfirming messages would be more common in a negative communication climate, and confirming communication messages would be minimal or absent. So you can think about like a coworker that really you don't like, they don't like you. It's not very fun to talk to them. That might be a negative communication climate. Emotional support is characterized by the presence of comfort, and comfort is helping other people feel better about themselves, behaviors, or situation by creating a safe space to express thoughts and feelings. And the book points this out, although it's more commonly believed that women need comfort more than men. Many studies have said otherwise. So some guidelines for providing comfort. You may have had an experience where you tried to comfort someone and it wasn't well received. So this is kind of talking about how to make it so that your partner is more willing to accept the comfort that you provide. So you want to clarify your supportive intentions. Explain or show that you really do just want to help. You're not criticizing them. You're not judging them. You want to just make it better. You want to buffer potential face threats, and this involves several concepts. So face is the perceptions that we want others to have of our words. So a positive face need would be the desires we have to be supported, liked, value, desires for interdependence, desire to be a part of a relationship. A negative face need is the desire to be self-sufficient and independent, to not need anyone else. So providing comfort can threaten a partner's face needs, And buffering refers to addressing both the positive and negative face needs to make comfort easier to receive. So addressing the ways that they want to feel supported or liked or valued, but also at the same time understanding and empathizing with the need to solve the problem on their own or to have their own sense of autonomy or make the final decision. So some guidelines, more guidelines for providing comfort are to use other-centered messages. So encourage the other person to talk about feelings, opinions, and thoughts. Don't make it about you. Reframe the situation by offering ideas, observations, information, or explanations that help the person understand the situation in a different way than they did before. I would say be careful with that. I know for me, there have been plenty of times where people took the reframe the situation approach. And one of my strengths is being able to see things from many, many different perspectives. And so I'm going, yeah, I've already thought of that, but right now I just want to be angry. I don't really want you to tell me how the other person's feeling, because right this second, I don't want to think about that. So kind of know who you're talking to. And, when appropriate, give advice. Present relevant suggestions for resolving a problem or situation. I would say don't jump right to the giving advice stage, because sometimes that can feel dismissive. Try to use the other's things first. That can make it a little bit easier for the comfort to be received. So managing privacy and disclosure. Communication privacy management theory describes the decision-making process we go through when we choose whether or not to disclose information. So in other words, English is hard. Communication privacy management theory looks at why we choose what to share when we choose to share it, or why we choose what not to share at the moments that we choose not to share it. So some guidelines for disclosure are only to self-disclose information that you would want others to disclose to you. So don't do the TMI thing if you wouldn't want TMI back. Self-disclose private information only if the level of risk is acceptable. So you might not want to tell someone a deeply held secret if you suspect that they might, tell their friends about it and you don't want those people to know. Move gradually to deeper levels of self-disclosure. I think most of us have probably had the experience of talking to someone who was oversharing and it was uncomfortable. It's something you have to do slowly and kind of earn trust. And continue self-disclosing only when reciprocated. So don't continue giving information about yourself if the other person isn't doing the same or does not seem interested. When it comes to sharing personal feelings, it's a good idea to first identify what triggered the feeling and the specific emotion that you feel as a result, and then frame your response as an I statement to emphasize personal feelings and reduce sense of blame. So, I felt like you weren't taking my needs into consideration when you didn't call me when you decided to stay out with a friend the other day. Instead of, you staying out with a friend made me so angry. If you do use the I statement, you put the focus back on your feelings and take the blame off of the other person, and it can help to kind of mitigate tensions and prevent arguments from forming. So providing feedback, you want to start by describing the specific behavior. Praise positive behaviors, give constructive criticism that does not condemn or attack and is based on a desire to help. And ask for permission first. Describe the behavior and the consequences precisely. Preface with an affirming statement and suggest changes. One thing that I was taught to do way back in high school, I went to the School of Fine Arts and I was in the creative writing program there. And so we had to do critique, which is like workshop, every week. Every week I had to look at 15 other poems or stories and provide detailed feedback on it. And they did the same to me every week. So it was a constant thing. And we were told the compliment sandwich. So you start with something positive, say, well, if someone's done well, then you specifically describe how they can improve. And then you return to a confident statement, what they've either done well or how their work will be better as a result. So I know that when when you strengthen that introduction, this will be an absolutely amazing paper. Might be the kind of thing that you end with. And the compliment sandwich works really well because the first step helps to reduce defensiveness and get the person to feel like they're on your side, or the person giving feedback feels more like they're on the side of the person receiving the feedback. And then since it feels like they're on your side, you're trying to help, then it makes it easier for that feedback to receive, and they're more receptive to it. And then ending on a positive note helps people to feel more confident and more likely to actually apply the feedback. So it's a really good technique. Some privacy management guidelines. Indirect approaches would be to change the subject, mask your feelings, so maybe you make it seem like you don't feel the way you do, or practice strategic ambiguity. That means making your wording unclear and up to interpretation for the person who's interpreting it. This is a Shakespeare moment, but in Romeo and Juliet, Juliet is brilliant at strategic ambiguity. About half of what she says in the play can be interpreted two different ways, depending on who's doing the interpreting. Some direct approaches to privacy management guidelines are to establish boundaries and directly state your wish to keep certain information private. And then some effects of disclosure and privacy on relationships. One of them is intimacy. Disclosure can increase or decrease the level of intimacy, and most relationships move back and forth in level of intimacy as a result of self-disclosure. So in general, you want disclosure to increase it, but let's say that you've disclosed that you previously cheated on a significant other. Well, that self-disclosure, at least in the short term, is probably going to cause some feelings of hesitation and maybe a reduction in intimacy between the two partners. And then eventually, maybe they'll get to the other side of it and the intimacy will increase, but it'll take some time to get there. So most relationships, to some extent, do that back and forth thing. Reciprocity, can't say that word today, is the degree to which feelings are returned. Reciprocity, there it is. I can make my tongue do the thing. The degree to which feelings are returned. And information co-ownership is how partners treat the information they disclose or receive, which to the extent to which they treat it as their own. So let's say you shared a secret with someone, and they decided that it was up to them to share that secret with someone else. Well, they did so because in part they felt like they now owned that information, even if it was originally yours. So disclosure can help, like if you keep the secret of the other person, it's going to increase the relationship and the feeling that co-owned information is respected. If you start sharing and blag, it's going to decrease the relationship. It's going to make that sense of intimacy less. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and then I think it's just going to be one more video, and we'll pick back up with communication styles, and I'll be right back.